I heard the countdown. I'm like, wait, am I supposed to start at this? 这个你说先有个急救对吧？然后再把多进从这儿，然后你拉出来之后。From Ningbo in general, we've got 3 students as well as, of course, a professor to join us in this wonderful discussion. So let me introduce everyone real quick. First, we have, of course, Professor Martin Lockett, who is the Dean and Professor of Strategic Management at the University of Nottingham in Ningbo in China. We have Jia Yi, who is a student here at UNNC, So, welcome everyone to our Ningbo Youth Roundtable. My name is Michael Wang. We are here sitting inside the library of the picturesque and very beautiful University of Nottingham Ningbo China campus. This is all part of our Rising Star City series here on CGTN, where we are going to go to every single Chinese city that have broken that 1 trillion yuan GDP mark, that's around 156 billion US dollars, to uncover their secrets, to discover their secret recipes in terms of what made them so successful, because it's actually very difficult to achieve this kind of level, this kind of economic output, especially for cities in developing economies. We've been in Ningbo all week to try and uncover the secrets of Ningbo, and today is our final day here in Ningbo, and we've got a very interesting perspective in terms of why the city is so successful, because we've got students here to talk about Ningbo, as well as, of course, a professor. So joining us, let me introduce our guests for our roundtable. We have Professor Martin Larkett, who is the Dean and Professor of Strategic Management at the University of Nottingham Business School here in China. Students-wise, we have Jia Yi, who is a student here at UNNC, a third year, a junior who's studying international business and commerce. We have Samuel, who is a PhD candidate, right, in development and health, here at UNNC, and then we also have Chen Jia, who's actually a student at Ningbo University, joining us. So welcome to you all. Thank you for joining us in this roundtable discussion today. So let me start with a very simple, it sounds simple, but it's going to be a very complicated question, right? What do you think makes Ningbo so successful as a city? Because when we think about Chinese cities, right, the first cities that we think about in terms of advanced cities, successful cities, your Beijing's, your Shanghai's, your Shenzhen's, your Guangzhou's. But Ningbo actually one of the 23 cities that have broken that trillion yuan GDP mark, right? So who wants to start us off in terms of why the city is so successful? Professor, how about you? And then we can get our students to join in as well.
Okay, maybe I'll kick off by, there's a little bit of history, because one of the things is that Ningbo has a very long history. 7,000 years ago is the first civilization here, and people are finding even older remains than that. But if you look at it, then hundreds of years ago, Ningbo was a center of international trade. It was actually the main conduit between China and Japan in the Ming dynasty. So you've got a long international history. And that now I think you can see reflected in the fact that Ningbo is the world's biggest cargo port.
Yeah, busiest cargo port in the world.
And number 3 in the world for containers.
Yeah.
So you've got a port. The other thing I think is really distinctive about Ningbo is its manufacturing. So it's a manufacturing center. If you go almost any car in the world, you'll find part of it is made in Ningbo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
So you find, I don't know, for example, my daughter in the UK, she works for Jaguar Land Rover.
Yeah.
I've seen parts being made for their cars in Ningbo.
Yeah.
So you can see that there's a manufacturing center. What's changed over the last decades, I think, is part of the opening up, is Ningbo's really upgraded its industry. So it's gone from being cheap production, on the one hand, to being high quality products, and companies in Ningbo are now becoming more and more international. So I'd say that's the key features of Ningbo.
So we are seeing really the city being innovation-driven, innovation-led, as it makes its transformation from a manufacturing hub to now, I guess, more intelligent manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, as well as with the maritime history that you mentioned about, because during the Ming Dynasty, I think also Ningbo was trading with Europeans, with the Arab world, along with its East Asian neighbors, its South Asian neighbors, and Southeast Asian neighbors. So maritime history, I guess, is very important, innovation-driven, all part of the success story of Ningbo. What about you, Jia Yi? What do you think? Because you're not from, actually, Ningbo. You're from Sichuan province in China, but you've been here for a few years. What do you think?
To my opinion, I think what the Martin says is great, because the Ningbo is a coastal city. So I think it gains a lot of benefits from the policy to open for the whole world. And I read it some like the dual circulation. The Ningbo has the like manufacturing, the local brand like Pittsburgh or younger, it's the textile industry.
Yeah.
Yes, the clothes industry. So they got so many like great entrepreneurs, and also they have a lot of like gain a lot of share in domestic market, but also because it's a coastal city, they gain also like a lot of share to foreign and the world market.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we're going to talk about foreign investment, I think, in a bit, Professor Lockett, but I think you've hit the nail on the head. This is, again, a very open city, Ningbo, because of its, I guess, location as well. And you also mentioned entrepreneurship, because that's something that I've discovered here in my week in Ningbo, is that the spirit of entrepreneurship is really strong, because the history of entrepreneurship in this city is very strong as well. There's so many famous Ningbo entrepreneurs. Sam, what about you? You've been here for what, 3 years? You're from Ghana. Yeah, tell us about your experience in this city.
I think for me, what moves me about Ningbo is that Ningbo has a plan.
Yeah.
Okay, and it commits to this plan. It was one of these plans that got me here in the first place. So I was talking with Martin about the fact that I know Ningbo has clearly stipulated strategies, research strategies, one of which is healthcare.
Yeah.
So back home, I mean, when I was looking for a place to do my PhD, I was introduced to Ningbo as a rich city, which commits to healthcare. And once my training was in healthcare, I stood a chance of getting a scholarship. So with such plan and such commitments, Ningbo is able to attract international talents also, and I think even within, it's able to attract specific people to move its agenda. I think that is what's working for Ningbo.
Part of the openness story again now, being able to better attract international talent from
Yes.
all around the world.
Yes.
Yourself being included here in this wonderful city. And speaking of talent, you're working also with the future talent industry, Chen Qiao, because you're in the education industry and you study at Ningbo University, and you're a local in Ningbo. So maybe talk to us about how you've seen your hometown changed, and why do you think your hometown has been so successful?
Yeah, for me, I think there are 3 reasons for Ningbo, why can Ningbo develop so quickly. And the first reason, I think, is its geographical advantages, because it is located in Yangtze River Delta, and it is adjacent to the international waterway. So this laid a solid foundation for Ningbo to do foreign trade, to become an international port city. And the second reason, I think, is Ningbo has a good foundation for development because it has a history as early as 7,000 years ago, as famous as Hemudu culture. And Ningbo is one of the first cities to open up to the outside world. So it laid a solid foundation for its development. And the third reason, I think, is most important one, is Ningbo character. I think it is pragmatism, resilience, courtesy, and charity.
Wow. Okay.
Ningbo people is inherited with the spirit of independence, pioneering, adventurous, and they are thrift. They cannot create the wealth, but also keep the wealth.
Wow.
I think it is most important.
So that's what you think defines a Ningbo person. Do you basically agree? Do all of our guests agree? Pretty much. I mean, I had a conversation with an entrepreneur the other day who's from Ningbo. He opened a restaurant. He has about 40 eateries in the city. And he pretty much said the exact same thing as you. He said, first of all, very diligent, very hardworking, but also very adventurous. I guess that owes to your maritime history. And then, but also you got to sprinkle in a little bit of humbleness as well. So diligence, humbleness, being adventurous, I think that's what defines the Ningbo person, right? So we have some idea in terms of why the city is so successful. It's open, it's international, geographically it's in a great location as well, spirit of entrepreneurship, diligence, adventurous, so many things. Let's talk about the quality of life in this city, because this is actually my first time in Ningbo, and it's really lush green. It's really clean. It's such a livable city, at least in my eyes. So who wants to jump in here in terms of the quality of life of Ningbo? How about we start with you, Chen Qiao, because you're from here.
So I think Ningbo's economy is so developed because we can see Ningbo has reached the 1 trillion level.
Surpassed that now, so it's 1.24 trillion yuan in GDP last year, which is, I can't do the math right now, but divide by 6.4, you get the US dollar amount.
So for our ordinary people, we can live a more prosperous lives. And what's more, I think we have a very convenient public service. We know Ningbo has one-stop service model. That means we don't need to go and we just need to go for one time when we need to handle some affairs in government. It's very convenient for us. And I think Ningbo is a very livable city. We have livable environment. Ningbo has very beautiful, comfortable surroundings, environment. I like Dongqian Lake, Sun Lake, Moon Lake. I think it is as good as West Lake. I highly appreciate you to recommend you to visit.
Okay, so when we go to Hangzhou to do that trillion yuan GDP city, we'll ask them right? In terms of the West Lake versus the Dongqian Lake, and then we'll get there.
Yeah, it's
we'll get their
very
thoughts on that.
beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like it's such a nice mesh of modernity with traditional Chinese culture, traditional Chinese history, and heritage. So, Sam, what about you? What do you think makes this such a livable city?
Yeah, I think naturally the longest I have stayed from home, I mean, was 30 days. So coming here, everyone was scared. But I got in here, and recently my brother was coming to China, and he was like, "Hey, what do you want from home?" I was like, "No. This is home." I mean, I feel very comfortable
You got the
here. There's
comforts of home
nothing,
here.
there's nothing else to add.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Oh, well, I know, right?" So he
Yeah.
understood it, and that's just because with little you can live big
Yeah.
in Ningbo. Okay, and the shopping malls are all over. You don't have to travel too far.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can also talk about the environment. The fact that you can see trees all over.
Yeah.
Yes, the vegetation is well developed. I don't know, I went to, was it Bamboo Sea?
Bamboo Sea.
Yeah, it's in Ningbo, right?
Yeah.
It was so marvelous. We had an aerial photo of the area, and it was so beautiful. I was like, wow.
So this is a bamboo forest in the city.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So this is
Yeah.
when I learned to, say that Wasiwan Ningbo.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned this phrase with meaning,
Yeah.
not just to learn Chinese.
So a very dynamic city with
Yeah.
a lot of lush greenery. And Jia, we were talking earlier. You said part of why it's so livable is that this is a decent sized city for China. Its population is around 8 to 9 million people, and it is very dynamic. You feel that growth, but it's not all that hustle and bustle, right?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, because the stress here is not as much as in Shanghai. The people here, I think, is living like quite in their own way. The lifestyle here is diverse, and also the kind of services or the goods are also is like diverse. If you want to buy cheap goods, you can find it. If you want to buy like luxury goods,
yeah,
like
yeah.
the mall just opened it called Banji,
Yeah, oh
or
yeah,
the
yeah.
Japanese mall. So
Yeah.
I think the life here is diverse, and most importantly, I think these people here just can live out what they want,
Yeah.
and don't care about other people's think about them.
Yeah. So it's a very distinctly Ningbo pace of life, I guess. And we were also talking about the cost of living in terms of renting a very high quality apartment here, Professor. You were saying 4,000 RMB can get you a really nice high quality apartment, maybe two bedrooms. Can it get up to 3 bedrooms, you think, for 4,000?
I would expect so. Yes.
Okay, so that's around $625 US-ish for a really nice 2-bedroom apartment. So the cost of living, I guess, is also very good. And in terms of transportation, this is also quite advanced because we are in the southern part of the Yangtze River Delta area. It's so close to Shanghai. I mean, if you want that big city feel, you can still go to Shanghai now in about 1.5 hours by high-speed train, and you can get to Hangzhou, the provincial capital of Zhejiang, in around 45 minutes. So it's very well connected, but what do you see in terms of the future of infrastructure in Ningbo, Professor?
Well, I think there's the growth of the infrastructure internally, inside Ningbo. So one example, at the moment, there's about 1 new metro line being opened each year.
1 new metro line
So
a
now there's
year.
4.
Okay.
There should be another one this year. There's a plan altogether that I've seen for 8 lines.
Okay.
And one of them should come to the university here by the end
Wow,
of that.
that's very
In
convenient.
a few years' time,
Okay.
not immediately.
Yeah.
So there's the internal development.
Yeah.
Before, people were dependent largely on buses for public transportation.
Yeah.
So that's been a very significant improvement. It's not as developed yet as a city like Shanghai, but it's developing fast.
Yeah.
Then you've got the connection to to other parts of China and the outside world. So again, the airport here is about 20 minutes from where we are now, 25 minutes drive. It's easy to get to, has flights in the region as well as within many parts of China. So it's easy. I joke. It's an easy place to get out of.
Yeah.
Not because you want to, but for tourism, for business,
Yeah.
and so on. And again, further improvements are planned. So, for example, there's a plan for a much faster direct line to Shanghai that won't go through Hangzhou. And that maybe will get down, the travel, people say it could be under an hour, as
Under an
well
hour,
as
okay.
high-speed link to Zhoushan, just next to Ningbo. And then there's improvements in the other lines. So this week, I think now it's 5.5 hours to Beijing by
Wow.
rail.
Okay.
It's over an hour has been cut off that.
Yeah.
travel.
Previously, it's around 7 hours, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
That's right. And then speeding up, also you can go to southern China, Fujian, Guangdong, And again, that's speeded up a bit over time.
Yeah.
So that improvement in infrastructure, I think, is very striking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a very well-connected city.
Yes.
So we've definitely discussed in terms of what makes this city so successful. We're seeing regional integration as well. Let's talk about the business environment real quick, because I mean, UNNC has also such a great business school here. Professor, maybe give us your sense in terms of how the city is innovating a little bit more. Then maybe we can get our perspectives from our students in terms of what you're seeing on the ground as well. How are you seeing the city transform itself into a more innovation-led city?
I think there are two aspects. One is the existing businesses in Ningbo, and there's some very impressive businesses. You mentioned a few already, especially in the clothing and fashion area, but there are others. One example which Premier Li Keqiang visited recently is one called Lego, or Loctech in English. And so what that does, that's a world specialist in tables that go up and down.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And things.
Yeah.
Also in other innovative types of office furniture. So one thing I've got, their product I bought actually it's a desk, but it's also an exercise bike.
Yeah.
So it's innovative products like that I haven't really seen elsewhere.
It's a desk and an exercise bike, so I'm trying to process that in terms of what that looks like. So you have a desk in front,
cycle.
right? And then you're cycling at the same time, and you're typing at the same time. That's genius.
Yeah,
I have to get one of those.
Yeah, so that's one example.
Okay.
But they're also, I think the other thing I'd say is they're innovating in business model.
Yeah.
So as with many other Ningbo companies, what they're doing is they're expanding overseas markets through exporting, but also setting up overseas production bases.
Yeah.
So one example is they now have a base in Vietnam, which enables them to be more competitive in the US thanks to some of the trade barriers there are at the moment.
I see.
For
Okay.
direct exports from China. So they're being innovative in that. Also in the US, they're helping small and medium-sized companies to sell online in the US through logistics and so on.
Yeah.
So that they're doing lots of things. So that's just one example.
Yeah.
And one other is a local company called Fangtai in kitchen equipment, where again they identified that unlike European or US, there's not a lot of space for a dishwasher in a kitchen. So they've made one that fits into a sink.
Wow. Okay.
And they did that. So that's one thing that they've been doing.
I see.
But again, it's multifaceted because they've also done is improve their design. They've used a very well-known US consultancy called IDEO, who work with people like Apple to improve their products.
Yeah.
And now they're comparable in quality and design to companies like Bosch and Siemens. So you're seeing that. So you're seeing these types of Ningbo companies. So that's happening with the existing businesses that were previously doing simpler products.
Yeah.
Because Loctech Lego started out making stands for TVs.
Wow.
And now it's doing much more sophisticated
Really
products.
seeing that transformation to go high tech.
And then you've got the government push for, you mentioned about new industries, healthcare, etc. So you've got that on the other hand. It's a combination of the two, I think, is what's behind Ningbo.
Professor, let me ask you about foreign investment in just a second, but I want to bring our students into this discussion in terms of how you've seen the city perhaps become more innovative, how it's become more intelligent, perhaps, because China, we are seeing a lot of smart cities springing up in this country, and cities are getting more intelligent. They're getting smarter as we see IoT and 5G being rolled out across the country at a very rapid pace. Any personal experiences in terms of how the city is becoming more innovative? Jiayi, what about you?
I think it's an app called like 浙江什么的一个 app, so we can get some like policy, like government related things be done very quickly, and I can go to the bus just with my card and just with my phone. The car is in the phone, just like the digital. It has all the digital information I needed to get on a car, and I think that's like to me as I'm not a local Ningbo ren, so it's very convenient to me. So that's my.
So this is what you were talking about in terms of the one-stop service, right?
Yes.
So that would include, I'm assuming, utilities, taxes, business licenses can all be done in this one-stop shop? Everything is digitized?
Yes.
Okay. Sam, what about you? Have you?
I mean, I would want to touch again on healthcare.
Okay.
I mean, I always go to Walmart for a reason. There's this pharmacy there which has this machine. You just put your hands on and it will tell you the nutrients you need, what to do to yourself. And then it would make some recommendations for you, I mean, as in supplements. Okay, I mean, I don't have to go to the hospital, join the queue. I can just keep track due to these medical technologies. Okay, so that makes me very excited, and I
Yeah.
worry if I get out of Ningbo, would I find this anywhere else?
Probably
I mean, yes, I worry about that. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, because it's one of the things which really gets to me, because I'm very particular about my health. I mean,
Yeah.
health is wealth. We would all agree.
Yeah. So how are you seeing the healthcare industry developing in Ningbo locally compared to, say, other places around the world?
I have not observed much. I've not paid particular attention to that, so I cannot speak much to that.
Fair
But
enough.
Personally, I mean, my roommates are always laughing at me. I'm always like, I'm on diet. I'm like, come on, you're not big. I'm like, no, but I need to check it before I get big.
I see.
Okay? And this is because of, I mean, the exposure I have here.
Yeah.
You see everyone going to the gym, everyone running.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh. I have to keep up the pace.
Yeah.
So that's one good thing I'm learning, and I think it still relates to the fact that the city has healthcare as a priority.
Yeah.
Yes,
Absolutely.
I think that's a good thing.
And just in terms of the larger picture, we were at an industrial park earlier this week, and staff at the industrial park were telling us, you know, Ningbo, it's getting up there in terms of innovation, but you can't equate it with a Shenzhen yet. But what Ningbo is really good at is the application and the commercialization of innovation, right? Because innovation by itself, it can only do so much. If you really want to unleash that development potential, that economic potential, you have to commercialize and apply innovation, and the city is encouraging that, right? So that's what the folks at the industrial park told us. And coming back to foreign investment, Professor, what have you seen on that front in terms of foreign businesses and how they view this city as a business environment? No, I mean, not just to sell in Ningbo, but to use Ningbo as a base perhaps for R&D, and perhaps to sell across China and around the world.
I mean, I think the companies that come to Ningbo really like it here.
Yeah.
The challenge for Ningbo is actually to get people to know more about the city and to attract, because people know other cities, the names like Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen.
Always living in the shadow of Shanghai. I'm sure Ningbo wants to come out from that.
Yeah. Well, we say now that Shanghai is within easy reach of Ningbo.
Exactly. There we go. Yeah.
But I think I mean, so one company that I know is one called Harpei. And that makes wooden toys. And it's a world leader in that. It's a German company, and the founder now lives in Ningbo,
Wow.
in Beilun.
Okay.
And their main production operations are here. So he's German, and now Beilun is effectively his home.
Wow.
I mean, he works across Germany and China. And so that's an example there. But what I see as well there is some of the innovations. They're looking in particular at how they can use bamboo, which is easily replaceable wood.
Yeah.
It's more sustainable. And so they've got in the one of the bamboo forests nearby here, they've got like a little research station.
Wow.
As well as a place you can take a rest.
Yeah.
Looking at the application of bamboo.
Yeah.
So that's an example there of more sustainable innovation.
I see.
Which involves, as I say, a foreign company that's also now, well, you'd say it's an international company. It's Chinese and German.
There we go. That's a really good point. I think I really want to talk about sustainability in just a second. But in terms of the education environment, Chen Qiang, I want to come back to you because Ningbo really is a city of scholastic excellence. When the professor was talking right there, I sort of just remembered a number in terms of the number of 状元 from Ningbo. So 状元, I guess we can translate that to valedictorian, perhaps, but the valedictorian of the entire country, right? So this is the top student in the entire country when it came to the imperial exams. And Ningbo had, I believe, 620 plus of these top students in China's, I mean, out of the entire country, this was the top student that came from Ningbo. So I was wondering, like, what's the secret sauce there? I mean, how do you produce so many top scholars, great thinkers, great minds? I mean, if you look at Chinese history, so many philosophers came from this place, top students, academicians here in China. What do you think?
I think, in my opinion, as a future teacher,
Yeah.
we will teach in Ningbo our education, and we teach students not only the knowledge, but also teach them how to learn.
Yeah.
Yes, we will teach them the way, we will teach them to explore the knowledge by themselves. Yes, and in Ningbo, we pay attention to the innovation to inspire students' creative thinking, critical thinking, and we will, in our class, we will combine the class with the real situation to let students learn by doing, to read with interest. And so it is a very important way to inspire students' interest, to activate their potential, yes, so that students can learn very happily and they can learn for a higher degree. They love learning.
I feel like, I mean, you can definitely unleash your creativity here. I just feel like maybe you can sit in the bamboo forest, sip some tea, sip a coffee, read a book, and then it's just creativity and brainstorming that comes out. And Ningbo has great seafood too. This is sort of a very side theory, but if you eat more seafood, perhaps you can become smarter. And Ningbo being next to the sea, so many of the top thinkers eating great seafood while enjoying that really lush green environment. Perhaps, you never know, right? What do you two think about sort of the scholastic environment here in Ningbo? The thirst for learning is something that I also get a sense for. I mean, going to Tianyige, right? The first private library, is this the first private library in the world or first private library in China? It's just beautiful, right? You get the sense of deep learning from Ningbo. Sam, Jiayi, do you have any thoughts on this?
Because I am a UNC student, I will talk from the UNC experience.
Yeah.
Because I think the UNC has a very distinct way to teach students, as Chen Chao mentioned, it's critical thinking. I think critical thinking is of vital importance, especially in this changeable world, because the UNC teaches us how to have the courage to raise up the difference, while other people maybe think it's the common way to solve the answer or find to predict the thing will happen in the future.
Yeah.
So I think it's about the critical thinking and innovative, and also I think the resilience, because it's not about you just stick up to a thing, but it's about the bad things will happen, but you will adapt yourself to that. Because one very important thing I learned from UNC is that I know something difficult will happen to me, but I will do positively with that difficulties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So really building up that resiliency mindset to prepare yourselves for the world of tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
What about plans post-graduation in terms of the youth in the city? I mean, who plans to stay in Ningbo? Who plans to maybe take a look at the world?
I have something to say to
Please,
this
please,
question.
yeah.
I think Ningbo rewards, students' efforts.
Yeah.
They have this scholarship scheme for PhDs, and I think even for bachelors and undergraduates, with the Ningbo government scholarship.
Yeah.
Yes, because of this scheme, a lot of PhDs are trying to put in a lot of efforts to get the scholarship.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I can't generalize much because I don't know for the lower levels. Okay, but with such, obviously everyone was trying to achieve better.
Yeah.
So I had some opportunity of doing a GTA work, so I engaged some UG students, and one student just came very worried why she didn't get good grades to merit the scholarship. So which tells you clearly that the scholarship scheme is a drive for one student to get good grades. So I can't generalize it much, but per my experience here, I would say that this reward system could also be motivating students to do more.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
I mean, the sense of learning, you definitely feel it in the city, and perhaps that critical thinking that you were mentioning about, this creative thinking that you mentioned about as well, Jiayi, can also spur the spirit of entrepreneurship, which you touched upon as well. Does anybody want to talk to us about the spirit of entrepreneurship? Because actually the success of Shanghai and Hong Kong owes a lot, actually, to Ningbo's entrepreneurs. Right, Professor? Would you like to touch upon that?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at many successful entrepreneurs in Shanghai, you find their family comes from Ningbo.
Yeah.
Then you find some successful people in Ningbo. Well, they came from Shanghai, but maybe originally from Ningbo. And also big connections with Hong Kong as well.
Yeah.
So I think you see a lot of examples there. So I think that, and you can see that today. And I think also it's reflected in the attitude of government as well. So the government here is relatively entrepreneurial in wanting to get things done.
I see.
Promoting policies that promote the city and so on. So there's like an industrial strategy for Ningbo.
Yeah.
and so on. I mean, based on my research, I think there are areas it can be improved, but it's a very strong base from which to go. And I think just one example is we're here at the university. It's the first joint venture university in China.
Yeah.
Going back to the theme of learning, Ningbo was entrepreneurial as a government
Yeah.
in supporting the first joint venture university in China.
Yeah.
So I think that's an indication of entrepreneurship, not just in business,
Exactly,
but also in
in
government.
government, in business model, in education. So the spirit of entrepreneurship is going through all different sectors of society here in Ningbo. And after being in Ningbo, I'll come to you last, Chen Xiao, but after being in Ningbo for so many years, are you optimistic about the future, your future? Jia Yi, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit not a little bit, just a little bit nervous because I think I have the multitasking ability, and also I think I'm good. I'm capable of to adapt to the challenges in the future. So I'm quite positive on that.
You're quite positive about your future prospects in terms of perhaps employment opportunities after university. Do you plan to stay in Ningbo? I mean, is Ningbo an option, or are you thinking of going to other cities?
I plan to stay in Ningbo because Ningbo, just as we mentioned, is a livable city, and I love the living speed in this city.
Yeah. I mean, so just the right size in China, I guess, is 8 to 9 million people. But again, in the world, this is a very large city. But by China's standards, this is a very livable city. And you can see that. I mean, it's not that crowded. It's not overly crowded. In the new districts, it's very livable. It's extremely clean. A lot of space going around as well. What about you, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I look back at when I came in and then now, and I see a vast difference.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, living here and then growing here. I went back to look at my 2018 pictures, like, wow, Ningbo has done well. Because Ningbo has taken care of me.
Yeah.
So I think, yes, I would want to stay on.
Okay.
Yes.
And then what about you, Chen Xiao? I mean, you're a Ningbo native, so what do you think in terms of your future prospects? Are you optimistic about the future? And do you think you can do better than your parents' generation?
My answer is sure. I will, in my future, I will stay in Ningbo to be an English teacher. I will give my own contribution to Ningbo's educational career. And I hope I can be an excellent teacher to teach more kids, or also those kids in rural areas. Yes, and about my parents, I think I will do better than them.
Okay.
Yes, because I received high education.
Yeah.
I can be more innovative, creative. Yes, I think I can have more knowledge, and that enabled me to do more remarkable things. I think my future is full of possibilities.
I can feel her optimism. It's just bubbling it out. I'm not sure if our camera can see, but she is. Look at that smile on her face. So, okay, yeah. Actually, after being here in Ningbo, I want to spend like 3 to 4 months here every single year of the year to be here. Yeah. And what about you, Professor? When it comes to your students that you're teaching, do you get a sense of optimism about the future in terms of their career prospects here at UNNC?
Fundamentally, yes. There's no question. I mean, what I hope we're doing here at UNNC is equipping people, as you said, with things like the critical thinking skills, not just knowledge.
Yeah.
And especially also, it's the ability to apply knowledge in new circumstances. Because actually, when you're working, it isn't what was written in the textbook.
Yeah.
It'll be different.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that. But sometimes our students even don't realize it's quite so different.
Yeah.
So what some of the things that I'm involved with in initiatives here at the university is actually helping to understand, students to understand more their individual strengths. So I've been doing a project around that, and then helping them to understand what they need to do in order to get good jobs and progress their career. So it's an area we're paying more attention to in the business school. As I say, it's something where I think our students and others from Ningbo can be optimistic, but they've also got to realize that the world is getting more challenging. So there's more competition, but they're well placed in that.
We'll talk about the world of tomorrow in a second in terms of what you think that will look like and how Ningbo is preparing you. But I was speaking to staff at UNNC, Professor, and they were telling me some 30% of your undergrads go on to 10% of the world's top universities. So it's a very large cohort, significant cohort, that goes on to some of the most elite universities in the world when it comes to furthering their studies. So that's always a good statistic. Back to our students. in terms of livability, I just want to understand in terms of entertainment, in terms of what you guys do for fun, right? We know Ningbo is a great place for knowledge, for critical thinking, for businesses, for investment, but just in terms of culture, parks, what you can do to enjoy yourself in this city. Who wants to start us off? Chenjia, how about you, the Ningbo native?
For entertainment, I will go shopping. Ningbo has so many
There's
shopping
so many malls. I was just going to
Yeah.
mention. Okay. Yeah.
But if I want to get more about culture, I will go
Yeah.
to Tianyi Museum.
Yeah.
Yes, and Ningbo City Museum and Ningbo City Library is
Yeah.
also a very beautiful place for you to learn something or for you to read books.
Okay.
It is very comfortable environment.
Okay.
Yes.
So you got the Tianyi Museum, the Tianyi Pavilion. You've got the Ningbo Museum
Yeah.
itself, and then the Ningbo Library. You recommend as something
Yeah.
to go check out as well, right? Sam,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Yeah, I think I mostly joined the school's organized trips.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I think once there was a trek program at, is it Bermuda Ancient Trail? Yes, it was a good one. Seeing the vegetation, the topography and all that, it was an excellent one. And there are other places that like I mentioned, the bamboo forest.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we went to, is it Hangzhou Bay? Hangzhou Bay. Yes, where
Yeah,
the,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
I mean, when I got there, I thought I was in Hangzhou, but they were like, no, you're still in Ningbo. Yes,
Got it,
it had
okay.
a lot of, arts stuff, and I like tea, the cultural tea. Is it
Yeah.
Pao Cha?
Pao Cha.
Yes, I
Yeah.
enjoy it a lot. So we
Okay.
had a session where they put us through how
Yeah.
to make tea, set up like that, and
Yeah.
all those things. It was good. And also, poetry, there were a lot of activities, and there are more of such tourist sites. I bought a camera for these reasons.
Oh.
Yeah, and away from that, I just think that the nightlife is not so big.
The nightlife is
You
not
have
so
to
big,
travel
okay.
too far
Uh-huh.
to enjoy some. So maybe
Okay.
that could be improved a bit.
It could be improved. It could be
Yeah.
a business opportunity, so you can jump from health and development to.
Yes, I need partners.
There we go. There we go. Jackie, what about you?
Yeah, because food is important. So
Uh-huh.
in my later time, I will go to some strange district to discover the food diverse. Like
Yeah.
go to try out these restaurants, Thai food or Japanese food. Yeah, something like
There's
that.
actually a lot of Japanese food in Ningbo, which
Yeah,
surprised
yeah,
me.
yeah.
Because previously there was a lot of trade, I guess, between
Yeah.
Ningbo and Japan specifically. But you can really find food from all over the world
Yeah.
here in Ningbo. It's very diverse in terms of options and in cuisine as well. What do you think about the nightlife here in Jai? In terms of after school, you just want to, just have some fun. What do you think
Yeah.
about,
I think it's quite good. I went bar sometimes just to sip of wine, like to enjoy the night. Not a good action to do, but I do.
Yeah, just to let off some
yeah,
steam, right?
yeah. So
Yeah.
I think it's quite like have some friends chat with each other. It's
Yeah.
quite chill. So
The Laovaitan area is really nice,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
You're overlooking the river. So this is the
Yeah.
old Bund,
Yeah.
right, is what they call it. This is the original Bund.
Yeah.
So before the Shanghai Bund, there was already one here in Ningbo, right? Do you know a little bit about the history of this, Chen Qiao? Are you able to, let us know what was going on in this area before?
This area, I'm sorry, I don't know about this.
Okay,
area.
so this is one thing that we have to learn in
Yeah,
UNNC
I
as
will.
well, to maybe understand the old Bund a little bit better. But what about the future of the city, I feel? The future growth drivers of the city, what do you think that is, especially from the younger generation, a youth perspective? Chen Xia, what do you think? The future drivers of the city?
I think that must be innovation.
Must be innovation.
Yes.
Okay, and you're seeing that innovation taking place
Yes.
as well.
Because as a university student, when I do some, when I in school, Ningbo government will provide many supporting systems for I to do some research on innovation. Like last summer, I set up a program that about transport or spread Yangming culture to the outside world, to foreign countries.
Yangming culture.
Yeah, Yangming culture.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I received many helps from Ningbo government. And Ningbo, so I can do something new on Yangming culture.
Yeah.
I design a book and create many films and short videos that I put up on TikTok.
Ah, I see.
Yes.
Okay.
And so, yes, I think When I do these things, I feel very happy, and I can get support from my teachers, from the government. Yes.
So it's a very enabling environment, I guess, for everybody who want to try out new things, I guess. Let me ask you guys a question like this. So if there was one thing that you absolutely want somebody from overseas to understand about Ningbo, what would it be? And then one thing that you absolutely love about the city so the one thing that you absolutely love about the city that you want to share with someone who has not come to Ningbo before, right? Someone like me, this is my first time here. And I've got to experience this wonderful city on the ground. But for overseas audience who's watching this, because we're being beamed all around the world, what do you think that is? Who wants to go first?
Me?
Sam, go for it.
Yeah, because I want to talk to people like me outside.
Yeah.
So I think, before coming in our brochure, Nottingham made a list of things we should expect so we don't get huge cultural shock.
Yeah.
But I came here and I was like, where is it? Okay, so one was, don't be surprised if you find people staring at you.
Okay.
But then I came here, no one was staring. I was like, okay, what happened? But then I traveled elsewhere and I experienced that. So that just tells me that Ningbo is internationalized enough. They don't get surprised seeing foreigners.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one thing. You would feel free here. Okay, so I think that's a plus.
Okay.
Yeah. So that would be it. You would feel comfortable once you get in.
Got it.
So I think that's it.
Jai, what do you think? What's the one thing you want to share with our
Also,
overseas friends?
it's the integrated vibe. The whole thing in Ningbo is like open, like welcome every culture, every people from different country to come to enjoy life and share your life with us, like that thing. And also has some beautiful thing like Dongqian Lake. I love Dongqian Lake most.
What can you do at Dongqian Lake? So I haven't been there yet.
Yeah.
It's a little bit far away from our hotel, but I heard this is a great lake, like you've mentioned, that can compare with Hangzhou's West Lake, right?
Yeah.
Because, Ningbo might live under the shadow of Shanghai, and from what I'm hearing, Dongqian Lake might be living under the shadow of the West Lake. So tell our audience, what exactly can you do at the Dongqian Lake?
Well, feel the wind.
Just feel the wind.
Riding the bicycle.
Riding the
Yeah,
bicycle
bicycle.
along the
Kayaking.
lake. What?
Kayaking.
On the lake as well.
I was there for that.
Yeah. And there's some sculptures from the Song Dynasty, I believe, as well, right? So this is a dynasty in China back, I believe, 960 AD-ish until the 13th century. So you can find some stone sculptures from the Song Dynasty at the lake as well, right?
Yeah.
There's also a very old village around the Dongqian Lake.
Yeah,
right?
it's very old.
How old is it? I think it's like 1,000 years older.
Yes, as early as Song Dynasty.
As early as
maybe,
Song Dynasty
yeah.
as well. And there's a 1,000-year-old village outside of Ningbo as well. It's just a 20, 30-minute drive. Well-preserved little ancient village, very near the city as well. Very near the city proper. So again, this nice mesh of modernity and history combined together. Professor, what do you think? What is the one thing that you want to share with our overseas
I think
audience?
that Ningbo is a city, as we said, with the facilities of a city with 8-9 million people.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah.
That's, I think, is the most striking thing.
Yeah.
So it's a city where you feel like you're in a medium-sized place.
Yeah.
But actually it's got the facilities of somewhere that's large. And I think that's the most striking thing. And then the other thing is, you can be in the downtown area, very modern shopping malls, facilities and so on. You go 20, 30 minutes, you could be in real countryside.
Yeah.
In a forest,
Yeah.
by a lake,
Yeah.
temples, walking up a mountain and things like that.
Yeah.
That combination is amazing.
Exactly, and I feel that here as well. So you've all shared the one thing that you want everybody outside of Ningbo to know. What perhaps is one thing you might want to change about the city? You think the city can do better, can improve on? Tricky, isn't it? Let's start with, Professor, let me start with you on this question. What do you think?
It's just got to get better known.
Just get better known, get its name out to
Get
the
its name
world.
out,
Yeah,
because if you go outside China, very few people have heard of Ningbo.
Yeah.
You then mention, well, it's the world's biggest cargo port. They say, what?
Yeah.
I never heard of it, etc. You talk about, well, for example, in Zhoushan, just outside, there's a Boeing aircraft factory.
Yeah.
Really? There's aircraft factories,
Yeah.
things like that. It's that sort of thing. I mean, some of that is because it's not on a sort of mainstream tourist route, something like that.
It should be, though.
It
It's
should
so
be. It should
beautiful
be.
here.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
But as I say, I think if there's one challenge for the government, and for people in Ningbo, is actually to get Ningbo better known.
Yeah.
That's the biggest challenge.
I guess that's why we're sitting here as well, right? So why do you think Ningbo is just not as well known as compared to, say, a Hangzhou? I mean, yes, Hangzhou is the provincial capital, but this is a sub-provincial level city, which is still very important. And again, this is one of the cities in China, only 23. I mean, China has hundreds and hundreds of cities. One of only 23 that have achieved such progress in terms of development and economic output. What do you think Ningbo has to do better to get its name out to the world?
I think Ningbo should pay attention to internet industry.
Okay.
Yes, it should pay more attention to the innovation part. Yes, to retrieve the upgrade of the industry to its high technology. Yes, and I think Ningbo still Ningbo is trying to do better on the artificial intelligence. Yeah. But it not as good as Hangzhou, so it is still live in the shadow of Hangzhou.
I see. Okay. Sam, what do you think?
I would still go by what Professor said. I mean, doing well to get its name outside. Ningbo was actually introduced to me by my present supervisor.
Yeah,
I had admission to the UK campus, and then he was like, he's coming here, he's been here for 3 months, it's a great city, it can be compared to London. I was like, okay. I just got curious and decided to join. So that is how come I got to know. And for most other people, if it's not recommended by people in here, they hardly know of Ningbo. But I think Ningbo has a lot to offer.
It really does.
Yes.
Yeah. Jai, what do you think in terms of how Ningbo can raise its profile in the world? And if you may, what might be one thing you would like to see the city do a bit better? So let's answer the first part of that question first. What do you think Ningbo can do to raise its profile?
Well, to me, maybe it's just like install some translator app to the Ningbo language.
Oh, the
Ningbo
dialect.
language.
Okay.
Yeah, it's difficult to understand. When I first listen to it, I feel like it's saying, you know, like people chat with each other, but I think it's like saying to each other.
I see.
Yeah, and for the second question, I think is to better promote it itself, like to find the bright industry to like to put this city brand to the all over the world. Like the CEEC, China CEC trade like expo.
China Eastern European Countries
was held
Expo.
in Ningbo, so I think that's a great opportunity to do. So,
Okay. Is there anything else we can do on the branding front, Professor, in terms of raising Ningbo's profile? Because perhaps some cities, right, do really have a distinct, unique character. When we think about Shenzhen, we think about the tech industry. But when we think about Ningbo, it's a lot of things combined together. I mean, manufacturing is very strong, but actually the service sector has actually now overtaken the secondary industry. So what do you think Ningbo's identity should be going forward?
Well, I think it needs to be a center of innovation. And I think do that rather than necessarily maybe a particular industry.
I see.
Because I think it's quite broad-based in manufacturing. It includes things that do products for businesses, consumer products, etc. So I don't think you can say it's the city of one thing. So I think you've got to do that. So therefore, it's got to be a theme. So I think innovation is one theme.
But how do you do that when you have like a Shenzhen, right, and a Shanghai right next to you? How does Ningbo stand out? I guess that is the fundamental question that we all need to answer.
Well, my view would be that you've got to look at, here are 10 things that people recognize worldwide. These are made in Ningbo. This is a Ningbo thing. I think it's to go beyond, it's the collective identity of the industry and the businesses and the society here. That these are the things, Ningbo is a place where things like this happen. I don't think it's going to be one thing, like maybe Hangzhou Ali Group, if you talk business. And so I think it can't be one thing. You've got to say this is a place where lots of things happen.
I mean, Ningbo, again, has traditionally been part of the Silk Road, the Maritime Silk Road. So this has been an international hub for centuries and centuries. And now, again, we are seeing its voice being heard on the international stage. I want to quickly go to sustainability because I want to get back to the green aspect of the city. And we are really seeing the city go green. And sustainability, I think, is definitely on the agenda of the local government. So what do you think about Ningbo in terms of having that sustainability characteristic attached to it? Chen Qiao, what do you think?
And concerning it, I think Ningbo do a better for environmental protection. Yes, it not only just develops the economy, but it also, at the same time, to protect the environment. And Ningbo is always protecting. The president Xi said the clear water and the green mountains is as good as the mountains of gold and silver. Yes, and Ningbo, if you go on the Ningbo road, you will find the Ningbo people would clarify the rubbish spontaneously.
Waste classification.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and we pay more attention on the environment protection. Our citizens will do it spontaneously. Do not need to rules to control us. Yes.
Okay.
And
Sam, what do you think in
I
terms of
think I
Ningbo?
wanted to touch on that, the waste classification. I think it was a very good policy, and they don't just enact the policies, they make sure that it's enforced.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good thing.
Yeah.
So we all grow into that, learning, and then probably we can take it out.
I mean, you rarely see rubbish, I feel, on the street, especially in the district that where I am right now. It's a very clean city. Jai, what do you think in terms of Ningbo as a sustainable city?
I think it's the promotion of the rise of awareness of sustainability. I saw an exhibition in like Yinxiang City. It's about like environmental friendly, like it's everywhere. You can go to the city and feel you need to do something for the world, for the environment.
Yeah. But do you think the youth of Ningbo, are they also aware of the need to protect the environment, the need for environmental protection, and this push to go green? Do you get that sense from the youth of Ningbo?
I think they subscribe to that. That's why we can say that you walk on the street and you don't see anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, if the youth wasn't subscribing to that, it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
In a way.
Professor, what do you think in terms of government policies, government support to make Ningbo a more sustainable city?
Well, I think went to a briefing on this, and one of the key things was the recognition that about half of the land area of Ningbo is green.
Yeah.
It's forests and mountains and so on. And while there's been a huge amount of new building in Ningbo, most of that has been preserved.
Yeah.
That's one thing. And then I think multifaceted approach, looking on the one hand at the environment. So air quality has improved a lot since I've been here, which is the last 4 years. That's very clear. I think water is still a challenge that the government recognizes, but that's something they're addressing, is both having enough water on the one hand, even though it rains a lot.
It rains a lot.
You still get the water in the right place at the right time, and the water quality.
Yeah.
So I think there's continuing attention there. And I mean, just one thing that I haven't seen elsewhere, that there's quite a few places in Ningbo for recycling, is machines where you get quite a small amount when you put when you do properly sort your rubbish into the different categories.
Okay.
Now, what's interesting about that is not so much. Maybe you get email, sanmao of revenue. But actually, people are motivated by that.
I see.
And that's something that's interesting.
Okay.
And it helps people sort the rubbish better.
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, this is a fascinating discussion. I hope we can keep it going, but we're a little bit short on time. But very interesting perspectives. Thank you all for giving us a perspective from students and from Professor Lockett in terms of what makes Ningbo so successful. So some really recurring themes in terms of openness, in terms of this love for knowledge, critical thinking, the spirit of entrepreneurship, innovation-driven city. And let's just make sure in the future Ningbo does not live under the shadow of any city anymore, right? Because this is a very international city, and it will become even more so, right? So fascinating discussion. I've learned a lot from all of you as well, and then hopefully I can come back again and join you guys for another discussion. So Professor Lockett, thank you.
Thank you.
Jia, thank you. Sam, thank you. And Chen Xiao, thank you. And that's going to wrap up our Ningbo Youth Roundtable. I'm Michael Wang. We will see you again here in Ningbo, and really do come to the city. If you are in China, if you are in Zhejiang province, really must-see place if you really want to see that modernity and history and culture all meshed into one beautiful, lush, green city. Until next time, bye-bye.
bye-bye.
Goodbye.